Charles Oldham and Marion Oldham. That was an interracial couple. Robert Curtis, who was an attorney. The first nine was arrested in contempt of court, and they were held responsible for what the other folks did during that demonstration. The second 10, they purposely violated the injunction because we were not about to let the white power structure frighten us from our acts of nonviolent civil disobedience. But the interesting thing, and then what was not cited in the documentary that the young lady pointed out, and that is the prosecuting attorney was Wayne Millsap, who was the bank's attorney.
Oh, wow.
You see, now this is showing you, I mean, that's why this is a classic. If you ever get a chance to look this up and trace it closely, you will find that the prosecuting attorney for the city was the Jefferson Bank's attorney. And so, I mean, and everything was whatever he desired. And of course, the sentences was severe. I mean, no one was given the type of harsh sentences. Norman Seay did most of his in how many years? I mean, how many? Not years, but he did 90 days. But the longest sentence was a year, and that was Robert Curtis, Clay Curtis, and Taylor Jones, I believe it was. No, it wasn't Taylor.
Just Clay
and Bob Curtis. Were they the last two? I thought it was somebody else. Okay. Oh yeah, Benny Goins. Benny Goins was another person. He was alderperson from the 21st Ward. And then you had Louis Ford. You had Roberta Tenure, Jean Tenure's wife, Ian Grand, and Mickey Grand. So it was an interracial group of 19 that went to jail.
But the board dictated the sentences.
The board?
The board had a meeting and dictated the sentences, and then Charlie Oldham said that somebody who got fired a few years later would have been taking notes, sent him the notes, and he saw.
He saw where they had
on the mic.
And dictated how long every
how long they
was supposed to be.
yeah. Okay. But it was a lot of shenanigans that were going on there. It was big time. Okay, so I mean, without any further ado, you want me to shut up? Okay.
We'd like to get the lady on the mic.
Oh, okay.
Speak for the women, please.
I was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Who you are first?
Huh?
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Sheila Michaels. Am I talking the right thing? Here, talking in the right thing now.
Sheila Michaels. Put it to your mouth.
Just hold it for her.
I was in Atlanta at the time, so everything I know about this I got from interviews, oral histories that I did with Percy Breen, Norman Seay, and Charlie Oldham. This was after Miriam had died. But finally, Columbia University got a grant. They're going to transcribe it and put it on digital.
Yeah, so, you have to speak a little louder.
Oh, okay. Well, I have oral histories with you about this, and that's how I know about what happened at Jefferson Bank, was the oral histories that I took in 1999. And they're at Columbia University in New York, and they're finally being digitized and transcribed, so they will be available only about 50 years after it happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we want to bring up Glenn from EHOC to give us a little bit about banking and mortgages and things of that nature.
Hey folks, my name is Glenn Burley. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist for EHOC, and Aaron asked us to come talk about some racism and banking issues. You know, EHOC, we do a lot of work around housing, but we also work in an alliance with other groups around banking issues, and I think anybody that's spent much time driving around town knows that Del Mar is not only a line that stops white folks from moving one direction, the banks don't go over it much either. Within the Central West End, between Kings Highway and Boyle, from Del Mar to Forest Park, there are 5 banks. There are 7 banks in North City, total, north of Del Mar. There's lots of ATMs, but I mean, think about it. You got Bremen on Broadway, you got US Bank and Commerce on Natural Bridge. there's a Bank of America down in St. Louis, and there's a PNC on North Grand by the yeah.
Page Avenue or West
Yeah, Page, yeah. So I mean, I'm saying that there are more banks on Hampton than there are in North City, and very few things like illustrate this as good as the difference between Hampton and Union. Because really and truly, Hampton and Union are pretty much the same street. They're just on other sides of Forest Park.
Yeah.
And on Hampton, there are banks all over the place. There's not a single bank on Union anymore. When the first bank closed, that was the last one. We're talking about this because the way we win these things is by keeping public pressure up. With the Community Reinvestment Alliance, we've got numerous banks built in low-income neighborhoods. The First National in Ferguson is a result of an agreement that we came to with that bank. The Midwest Bank Center in Pagedale is a result of a consent agreement that they came to with us. And we're still pushing to get more banks all over North County and North City. And actions like this are important because it's good to see community members out in front of the bank, right? Jefferson Bank, people were talking earlier, they do have banks north of Delmar, but only west of 270, which is really common. So, this bank is a great example. They basically they have what we call a donut hole. In the industry, we call it a donut hole. It shows you got banks all around an area, but not in the middle of it, and you're claiming to service that area as well. 20% of your population within your service area is African American, but you're only doing 4% mortgage loans to that community. That doesn't make any sense. These banks only taking ads out with white folks in them. That's them saying they don't want business if you're not white. It's under there, but that's really what that means. If they're not trying to get your business, it means they don't want your business. So, thanks for letting me talk. If anybody has any other questions about banking stuff, just get a hold of me. If anybody has any interest in the Community Reinvestment Alliance with EHOC, just let me know.
All right.
So now I want to bring up Moore, Bassam, and Kennard to talk about power behind the police.
We'll get back.
Okay.
Good evening, relatives. How you doing? It's beauteous to see us out here gathered for a cause that has continued for centuries. We have had a wake-up call recently, and it's good to see that the young folks have come along to join in a fight that our elders have known about all along. And the power behind the police in the wake of the unrest following the death of Michael Brown, MORE, which is Missourians Organizing for Reform and Empowerment, found it important to map out and trace the power structures within the city that control and mobilize the police within the area. The people and groups within these power structures range anywhere from politicians, corporate executives, to prominent bankers, lawyers, law firms, and even the large banking firms. We have to understand the structures that enable and empower these individuals to get out here and dehumanize our citizens in America. And the more that we stand up, speak, educate, and inform, go out and tell somebody who doesn't know how this structure is situated. If they are foreign from your experience, then share your experience. We must get out here in the street and educate and inform people, because once one group is dehumanized and they are successful with that, they will move on to the next group. So we've been fighting this for centuries. It's just an honor to be present with the elders today and continue this fight. Today, as they said, it's 52 years that they've had this fight. 52 years since the I Have a Dream speech, where they always omit the part where Martin Luther King says that the United States, for its colored citizens, or its citizens of color, has issued a promissory note that has been returned insufficient funds. We are now here in 2015 with insufficient funds on the Bank of Justice in America. We also want to give note that 60 years ago today in Chicago, they mourned the death of Emmett Till. So here we are, a half century later, decades later, still with the same cause, the same concerns, the same system in effect. We must dismantle it and bring new information to the table.
Thank you, Basman.
Continuing what Basman said, tying in racial justice, economic justice, and banks.